Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. We're all still surviving, moshing with the apocalypse. And it feels like summer here in Florida, and it sucks. I hate it. So I want winter and fall to come back because this is horrible. I'm talking about you can't even go out there at all hardly without some bugs being like, let's go in Jeffrey's ears and live. And give him one of those Robert Kennedy worms in your brain, which is now I'm paranoid about that. But but some gnats laying a worm in your brain. But definitely gross out there. Just humid. Seems hotter. Every year here it just gets hotter. But tonight we got Wham here with us representing. Good to have Wham here. She's in Hudson Valley.
Yep.
We got Clay Adams from Fried Comics, friedcomics.com, born in Georgia.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
Georgia representing tonight.
That's right. Indeed. And I always get told I don't sound like I'm from Georgia, which it fluctuates. Like sometimes I can be like, oh, why are you doing? I can't even do redneck anymore. Like sometimes, but I sound like Sling Blade when I do it. But luckily nice. I have a natural Jack Nicholson voice if I want to do it. This is Jack Nicholson. We're going to bang a little bit of beaver tonight. It's Friday night, Fried Comics. And that's luckily I got that. But the redneck thing, it comes out sometimes, but not often. But great to have you here. And what can you tell us about what started Fried Comics? Did that start out in Georgia, or you'd moved, or just give us some background?
Yeah, funny. I mean, I guess we did launch when I was still living in Georgia. I was living in New York when we first started talking about it. So I created Fried Comics with Alexander O'Philippe. He's a documentary filmmaker, probably best known for The People versus George Lucas. That came out a few years ago, but he's become an expert documentarian on, he does movies about movies. So 7852 about Psycho, Memory, The Origins of Alien.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Cool. He did the official William Shatner documentary. So he's kind of gone on to do some good stuff in the world of documentaries. But probably 15 years ago or more, a little more than that, we were writing screenplays. We met each other at NYU, had written a couple of screenplays, and I don't know, somewhere along the way we decided, let's do a comic book. One of the screenplays was Dead Skins, which we later turned into a comic book. But we had some characters that were angry pregnant women. And let's see, I don't know if I can even say the title on air. I don't know. We're on FM radio. I don't know if I can or not. It's not F. Yeah. But you can look it up on the website. You'll find out.
Yeah, you can say bitches.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So Pregnant Bitches of War. We were like, hey, that should be our next project. Because it just sounded like such a terrible title. Yeah, such a dumb title. We thought, well, what if we could make this into an actually interesting story?
And it's like women, like, I don't know if they're superheroes, but they're in serious war situations. But they're
they're kind of time traveling pregnant ladies who kick ass. I guess is the best way to describe it. But Back to the Future meets Inglourious Bastards, but with pregnant ladies. That's how we pitch it. And I think we decided like that wasn't a screenplay, it was a comic. So we started developing it into a comic book, and kind of around the same time we decided to also go ahead and do Dead Skins. And out of that came Fried Comics. I mean, we decided that these stories had something in common, and so did Red Xmas, which was another screenplay we had written earlier that we decided to then turn into a comic after we'd done Dead Skins, after we'd done Pregnant Bitches of War. And we decided that all of our comics had something in common, which is that they had no nutritional value. They were just like a good fried meal at a diner. It goes down smooth, tastes good, but no nutritional value. And so we came up with the name Fried Comics, and we launched it. We launched it in 2013, serializing on our website. We serialized PBOW, we serialized Deadskins, and we thought we were going to get super rich selling 99-cent downloads of our comics on our website. And spoiler alert, that did not happen.
And I want to get into Deadskins, but give me 1 minute. There's one thing I forgot to plug, and it'll be like 10 seconds.
Oh, bring it.
And it's apocalyptic Wild West scavenging strategy roguelike game called Nightmare Frontier. And it's coming out. Let me open it on Steam. Nightmare Frontier is the name of the game. It's a Weird West game. It's by the guys that did Hard West, Ice Code Games. And if you go to Steam and look up Nightmare Frontier, it's like a crazy Weird West game. So check it out. That's Nightmare Frontier. And I love Weird West stuff. And, you know, I'm always looking for it in comics. And there's games. There's some games, but, you know, not a lot. But there's getting better. But what is it? Would you consider Deadskins Weird West? It's kind of, it is for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a zombie horror comedy Western. We pitch it as Blazing Saddles meets The Walking Dead. It's a Harvard dandy and his blind, drunk companion are all that stand between the Old West and a zombie apocalypse. And we had a lot of fun with it. It was Layla Del Duca on the art. She's gone on to do a bunch of stuff for DC. She's drawn Wonder Woman. She's had a bunch of successful series at Image. She did a fantastic job with it. We had covers from Takashi Okazaki, who did Afro Samurai. Ben Templesmith had a cover for us. And we serialized that on the website. And then in 2020, we did kind of a remastered version, bringing it to print. We were a little concerned that the lines wouldn't print dark enough. So we kind of, remastered it, darkened the artwork a little bit. It's kind of done in this black, white, and red style, which has a very distinctive look. Just the blood is red. That's the only color in the whole book. And so anyway, we did our first print copies. We kickstarted it during the pandemic, and it went great. It was our best Kickstarter campaign. Each one was our best one every single time. We published it over 3 volumes. And just earlier this year, we sold out. So I went back to print with what I called the 10th anniversary hardcover edition. And you're kind enough to grab a copy, and I think that's how we met.
Yeah, I got the sent out the one with that and a bunch of the other issues, and I got all the Frankensteins. I just got the new Frankenstein that you put out.
Oh, sweet.
And let's see here. What did I do with it? I got your comic page open, but if anyone wants to check out Blazing Blade of Frankenstein, can they get all these on Fried Comics? You can purchase them there too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So Fried Comics, there will be the store tab you can go to. That should link you to our pre-order store on BackerKit. You should be able to grab everything there, except the new issue of Frankenstein isn't on there yet because we just finished the Kickstarter. But you can go to bit.ly/BBOF-1-4 and get the new issue. You can also buy everything else we've done through that link. We're currently, the campaign's over, but we're currently accepting late pledges. And this is for Blazing Blade of Frankenstein. It's gothic horror meets sword and sorcery. We cast Frankenstein's monster as a Conan-style barbarian.
And what's kind of his origin story with him in that? Is there a Dr. Frankenstein? And I've started reading them. And what can you tell us just a little bit about him?
Yeah, I mean, so Frankenstein is my favorite novel, and I wanted to do basically a sequel to it. And I thought, spoiler alert, 150-year-old spoiler alert, something like that. Actually, more than that, probably 200-year-old spoiler alert almost at this point. Frankenstein goes off at the end of the novel. Frankenstein's monster goes off at the end of the novel to commit suicide in the Arctic. And I thought, well, what if instead of killing himself, he stumbles through a portal to another world? And I also became aware of another public domain story called The Blazing World, kind of about the same time. And being a very lazy writer, I decided, well, that would be kind of cool to sort of mash these two things up. Then I don't have to create anything. So he goes to the Blazing World. And Alan Moore, as it turns out, had that same idea in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, that Frankenstein ends up in the Blazing World. But he just did it as a throwaway joke in one panel. I turned it into an epic sword and sorcery comic. So I think I'm one up on Alan Moore there. He's got me in every other regard, but you know, yeah, so it really is. I'm really treating it like a sequel to Frankenstein. I mean, I'm sort of trying to stay true to that, but I've created sort of you know, my own world with this thing. You know, it's when you're dealing with stories that are that old, you know, that people are maybe not as familiar with anymore. I mean, like, we know Frankenstein, right? Mostly from the movies at this point, more than I think the novels. And Blazing World, people really aren't that familiar with. But I thought that was a cool place because the creatures there were sort of man-animal hybrids. And I thought that would be a cool way to basically pit Frankenstein against the universal monsters. You know, the Wolfman. We've got like a fish man that's sort of like Creature from the Black Lagoon-ish. You know, we did sneak Cthulhu in there. He's not Universal Monsters, but his public domain horror, and I thought that would just kind of be fun to put him in there. So like every issue, we kind of have him face off against a new monster, and the big bad in that series is Dracula.
Awesome, that's for sure. It's interesting about Frankenstein how many weird things they are. Like if you do a search, like I've come across and I love your book, and anything with Frankenstein I'm down, and I definitely love it and enjoying it a lot, and the artwork and everything. What do you do? Do you do the artwork too, or do you just write?
I wish I just write. I'm just the writer.
Yeah. Say just right, but that's a lot. I have books that I haven't wrote one in a million years, so I know it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but you know, comics is a visual medium, and I'm lucky I worked with a couple of really fantastic artists on this. A guy named Kyle Roberts did the art on the first two issues.
Yeah.
And then the second issues 3 and 4 are done by a guy named Mick Byers that I've worked with on another book called Dream Quest.
Yeah, I've definitely thought of some ideas for comics. It's just like the artists and stuff. It's hard work. Like, God, I couldn't imagine the art and stuff, and even the writing. But the art, as far as some of these guys that have been doing the art forever, their hands, like my hands hurt thinking about it.
Yeah,
I'm on a keyboard too much because of my job, so I have to deal with that kind of stuff all the time. But I can imagine. But when it comes to Frankenstein, like some of the weird stuff I've found. There's a Frankenstein Punisher, like a hard castle, like from Marvel, and I don't have it, but I know there's a hardback where he turns into Frankenstein somehow. I don't know how, but somehow the Punisher is Frankenstein. And then one I found, I haven't read it yet, and I got it a while back. Helheim. It was Colin Bunn. It's Frankenstein in the Viking times. And
wow,
Viking. Yeah, it's called Helheim, like Hel. Helheim. I know it's a Norse word, so that's what you would find it under. But there's like 2 different series of it. It's not very long, like just 5 or 6 issues each series. I don't think they did anymore. And then there's the Doc Savage from the Wachowski sisters now, or the brothers formerly. I haven't read that, but I want to. I'd like to pick that up. But there's a lot. There's one about him in a Western, Dead Texas. I haven't read it, but I talked to the dude briefly. But it's just interesting how he pops up in so many different weird things. Like
yeah, he's such an interesting character, and I mean, in some ways, like the world's first superhero, because the way he's written in that novel, it's almost like he's got super speed. He can jump long distances, almost almost like Superman. You know, in the early Superman comics, he couldn't fly, but he could leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Yeah.
And the way, you know, Frankenstein's monster sort of travels across the Arctic in these huge bounds. Just the way Mary Shelley describes him, it felt very superhero-ish to me, and so I kind of wanted to honor that in this series, and really just sort of make him into a Conan style barbarian. I mean, even the first issue is sort of loosely based on the Frost Giant's Daughter, which is a Robert E. Howard Conan story.
Okay, cool.
The second one, you know, I sort of based on a Robert E. Howard story. You know, they're all sort of loosely inspired by the Conan stories, but not, you know, they're not like ripoffs or adaptations or anything like that. It's just sort of like subtle winks and nods. If you're a fan of that stuff, you know, you should get it. But I just sort of put all these things in a blender and came up with Blazing Blade of Frankenstein.
It's definitely cool. How long do you plan on doing it? I mean, that series, are there going to be more, or?
Yeah, so right now the Story Bible clocked in at 7 issues, but really kind of the more I started to think about it, I felt like I needed 8 to tell the whole story. So we're right at the halfway point now. And I've kind of divided it into arcs. So the first 4 issues form an arc. The next 4 issues are going to form the back half of the story, the second arc. And then, I mean, you know, it really just kind of depends on if there's interest. If people are, you know, the Kickstarter campaigns have been very, very consistent. You know, the last 3 issues have raised basically the same amount of money. The last 2 have had basically the exact same amount of backers. I mean, it's a very rock steady title. So if that keeps up, then, you know, and people want more, then yeah, we'll make more. I mean, we've even kind of talked about where the story might go after this, but let's get to the finish line first, and then we'll figure that out.
Yeah. And what can you tell us about the Lovecraft book? You have a Lovecraftian comic?
Yeah. So that's Dream Quest, the other book that I do with Mick. He and I had been trying to think of something to work on for a while, and he, you know, Mick is sort of a man out of time. He feels like he really should have been living in the 40s. You know, he only listens to old timey radio. He reads a lot of things like The Shadow. You know, he's just kind of a man out of time. And so he approached me. I think he had read a couple of the Lovecraft stories, or maybe all of them. He certainly listened to all of the radio adaptations. And he pitched me, I think it was Beyond the Wall of Sleep. We were kind of looking at Lovecraft's dream cycle because we felt like the Cthulhu stuff was maybe a little overplayed on Kickstarter. But we knew we wanted to do Lovecraft, and we kind of wanted to stay away from Cthulhu. So he led me to the dream cycle, which I thought could be cool because we could maybe do something that's a little bit like Nightmare on Elm Street, sort of. And we came up with Dream Quest, which we pitched as Reanimator meets Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And we used the dream cycle as our jumping off point, but we created all new characters. So Margot Carter is our heroine. She's Randolph Carter's great grandniece. You know, if you know who Randolph Carter is, if you've read those stories, there are tons of great Easter eggs in there for you if you're a Lovecraft fan. If you're not, you don't have to be familiar with it to get it. But yeah, we kicked it off with an adaptation of Beyond the Wall of Sleep in the Nightmare Theater horror anthology, the second volume, and we decided let's just do this Hollywood style. So we adapted the story, but we basically took the title and came up with a completely brand new story. So like I said, we did it Hollywood style, but we wanted to do it sort of as a prequel to Dream Quest before we launched that series. So that way we could kind of introduce readers to that world, to Randolph Carter, to the concept of the Dream Realms and Nyarlathotep, Hotep, who's the big bad. And we were really happy with how that story came out. We actually set it in Savannah, Georgia. In fact, a portion of the story takes place inside the Pirate's House in Savannah. And yeah, we launched DreamQuest as a one-shot, a 48-page one-shot. And it did so well on Kickstarter, and we had enough people asking us kind of what happened next. We came up with a sequel, and that's going to lead to part 3 coming out. We're going to bring it to Kickstarter later this year.
What's the Pirate's House in Savannah? Do you know much about it? What is that?
Oh, yeah, it's an old famous house where like pirates used to hang out. I mean, I don't think there's that much more to it, but I think Robert Louis Stevenson wrote about it in Treasure Island. It gets name dropped a lot during, in different parts of literature and things like that. And anyway, now it's kind of a touristy trap sort of place, but it's been around for a while.
I'll have to look it up for sure. For some reason, I'm thinking of Doc Holliday's thing, and where's that at? I remember seeing it where he lived, or his dentist office, Doc Holliday, and I've seen that somewhere too.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Where?
That's Savannah.
So, I don't know if it's Savannah. I think it's down south more. I'd have to look it up, but there's something like that in Georgia where he lived, or he's from there or something.
Okay.
But so what were some of your influences growing up? Like comic book wise, like some of the big ones.
Comic book wise, I mean, one of the first comics I ever bought was Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And that was sort of the send off to the Silver Age Superman right before John Byrne took over the series and completely rebooted it. I mean, in some ways, a completely different character. So Alan Moore wrote the final Silver Age Superman story, and it was a 2-parter that crossed over from Superman into Action Comics. And I think the one I picked up was actually part 2, but it just blew me away. And I think ruined me for other writers in some ways. I mean, because it was just head and shoulders above anything else I was picking up on the stands. And I couldn't understand why this was so much better, but I knew that the writer had something to do with it. And so that made a huge impression. And I think came into comics at the right time because I was a DC guy. So I was, naturally drawn to those titles like Batman. And shortly after I started picking up Batman, Frank Miller did Batman Year One, which again just blew me away and was so different from every other. There were only, I think, 2 Batman titles at the time, right? It was Detective Comics and Batman. And what's funny is that like what was going on in Detective Comics as Batman Year One was being published in Batman, what was going on in Detective Comics is actually a fantastic run of Batman comics by Mike W. Barr and Alan Davis. And those are spectacular Batman comics, but I think they suffered by coming out at the exact same time that Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli were reinventing the character in Batman Year One. But that really stuck with me. In fact, I still look back at Batman Year One as a touchstone, when I'm trying to think about how to structure stories and what you can get away with, because it tells so much story in only 4 issues. I mean, it's really not a lot of real estate, but they cover so much story in it. So I'm always trying to probably tell too much story for the space I have, but I blame Batman Year One.
How many comic book boxes do you have? You still have like 1 million of them, or?
Not 1 million. When I moved from New York, I pretty much sold my entire collection. I didn't want to move with all these books, and so now I'm slowly buying them all back for much bigger prices than I sold them for. So it's a pretty dumb hobby, but yeah, I do have quite a few boxes. I've probably got like 8 long boxes in the closet and a few short boxes as well. Actually, probably more than 8, maybe like 12.
That's
And so
about
a
where
few
I
short
am.
boxes.
That's about where I am, and I have to stop. Not stop, but at least let them drip a little. Not anything crazy like I was doing.
Yeah.
But can't afford it anymore. It gets expensive. That's the biggest thing with. That's why I like the simplicity of some of the, your comics and Peter's and
Mm-hmm.
Kevin's and stuff. It's like if you want a certain comic book nowadays, let's say if you want Spider-Man or X-Men, you're confused how to even start that. Like it's just insane. Like there's
Boy,
so
that
many
is true.
different ones. Yeah, it's like my God, I have a heart attack keeping up with this shit.
Well, there's so many different titles and so many different storylines and so many years of history. It really, like, I was in a comic book shop probably 8 years ago, and I was teaching acting at the time, and one of my acting students came in, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I didn't know you read comic books," and she was like, "Well, I've really gotten into this Supergirl TV show, so I really want to try some of the comics. So where do I start?" And it was like, I mean, first of all, I didn't know enough to really be able to say, but it was like I could point her to the Supergirl comic books, but it was like she picked up an issue and it was part 3 of a 6-part epic. And, she didn't know if she could get part 1 and 2. And, like she just wanted to pick up something that had Supergirl in it. And that she wound up leaving the store empty handed because there
So
was just,
confusing.
she just didn't know where to go or where to begin. And that is something that I like about the Kickstarter stuff, because it's like you get shorter runs, you can get a complete story. I mean, I always try to give people a complete experience in an issue. Like Blazing Blade of Frankenstein is episodic. So every issue is going to stand on its own, but it adds up together to tell a bigger story. But I try to make sure that, you can get all the back issues when you're going onto the Kickstarter. I try to make it super easy for people to catch up.
That's always good, definitely. I like the Kickstarters that do the whole like gift thing of everything. Like that's the thing I got from you originally, with it had like everything in it, just about. I like that. That's a cool thing. There's one guy I have to look him up, but in Canada that does a lot of Lovecraft comics. He had like a thing like that. Now I gotta look him up just to plug him, but
yeah,
one of those where you just get a bit of everything. I like that. That was cool.
Those collector boxes do very well.
And I'm trying to find that particular person. So what's been going on with some comics that you got coming up? What do you got coming up?
So coming up, I mentioned the Nightmare Theater Horror Anthology before. We are this is for a different company I work with called Bloodline. This is with a creator named David Schrader. He created Baby Badass at Action Lab Comics. He and I worked on a horror movie 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, called Bloodline. He directed, co-directed, co-produced, co-wrote, and I starred in that movie. And so when I started doing comics and Dave was getting into comics too, we sort of joined forces and created the Nightmare Theater Horror Anthology. And so we've done 3 volumes of that in the grand tradition of horror franchises. We made the 3rd one in 3D, Nightmare Theater 3D, and we're totally sold out of volume 1. It raised about $30,000 on Kickstarter. We did a healthy print run of it, and just through the years, through Kickstarter campaigns and doing conventions, we have run out. We don't have any more, and so we're going to put it back into print. We're going to do. I don't know how big of a print run we're going to wind up doing, but we need this for tables because people like to buy the whole set. If that's one thing I've learned, because it's an anthology, you don't have to start with number 1. But people really like to have the whole set. And so we want to get that out there. So that Kickstarter is going to come up soon in the next couple months. So we have that. We are doing, Dave and I also do a comic called Carmilla Unbound, which is, we took the original literary vampire, Carmilla, and she's another public domain character, but we've sort of cast her as a vampire Dexter. So she only kills the bad guys. And we're setting her in different time periods. So the first one we did was 1973. The one we just wrapped up on Kickstarter is Carmilla Unbound 1984. So we're kind of just dropping in on her in different time periods and following her story. And we're going to do a very Carmilla Christmas Carol later this year, just in time for Christmas. So that'll be fun. And then I have a new series coming up called The Grunch, which we briefly spoke about. But that's one I pitch as Midsummer meets White Lotus. And it's yeah, it's a really, really creepy story that's set at a luxury resort that maybe has a little more going on under the hood than it seems.
Nice. Yeah, we just watched White Lotus recently. I binged it. That was a trip for sure.
Oh, that's a great show. It's one of my favorites, and I wanted to do something in that vein and to be able to, put a monster loose inside the White Lotus was my dream.
Definitely. That should be very interesting. So what do we know about the Gurch as a cryptid? It's actually a cryptid that's come up in like cases.
Yeah, so the Grunch is a cryptid. I think I was just sort of researching. I knew I wanted to do a monster book. Like I said, I wanted to put a monster inside the White Lotus. And so I was just kind of looking for existing monsters that I could sort of take and maybe write about. And the Grunch just sort of caught my eyes, kind of like this goat-like creature. And the legend kind of comes out of voodoo.
Nice.
And I thought those elements could be really interesting for a story. And he's just sort of this goat-like monster. And I really kind of deviated from the actual lore. I mean, I think the Grunch itself is maybe based in New Orleans. I'm sure if you're in New Orleans, yes. I'm sure people might be listening to this. They might be familiar with the Grunch. But I sort of took him to another island. There's actually, I've decided there's a family of Grunches. It's not just one. So New Orleans might have the original Grunch, but
Southern Louisiana.
Louisiana. Okay.
It is kind of a goat man. It looks like a goat man. There's a lot of weird goat man stuff, but it's just another name for him or a different particular case, I think. Yep. That's interesting. Being a Capricorn, I find goat men very fascinating.
Right? There's something very arresting about that look. So I just wanted to play with it, and I'm reuniting with an artist named Fabio Ramacci. He and I did a book called Red Xmas a while ago. That was one of the original stories that we did for Fried Comics. And then he's also been drawing the second volume of Pregnant Bitches of War. So it's been kind of nice to reunite with him on this book. It's going to be, I think it's some of the best scripts I've written, and the stuff Fabio is turning out looks amazing.
I like Weird Santa comics. Those are.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that one? I know Kevin's got a weird one too that I got a hold of. But what can you tell us about that one, Red Xmas?
Yeah, that one sort of came about because we were riffing on again Nightmare on Elm Street. Alexander O'Philippe and I, we were kind of talking about what other things attack you in your sleep. And we thought, well, Santa Claus is kind of an inherently creepy concept. I mean, right? Like this guy comes into your house in the middle of the night while you're sleeping and leaves you presents. But like, what if he didn't? I mean, what if he was a more malicious entity? And I definitely remember thinking, right, like, being afraid at night of people breaking into the house, and my parents being like, well, we've got locks on the doors and we've got locks on the windows and we've got this alarm system, so nothing's going to break in. And I'm like, well, yeah, but these are the same people that told me that Santa Claus comes down the chimney once a year and breaks in. So if he can do it, and so, we just kind of started riffing on the idea of an evil Santa Claus, but we kind of crossed it with that movie Falling Down, where the guy just kind of has a nervous breakdown and kind of goes nuts. He has a bad day. So
Yeah.
we thought, well, what would drive Santa to have a bad day? Well, what if Mrs. Claus died in a tragic toy accident, and now Santa sets out to make all those little brats pay? So we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. Keep thinking of the Terrifier dressed up as Santa Claus smiling. That
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
I can watch those once, maybe twice, but that's a lot to take in. Those.
They're intense. I haven't seen those, but I was just at Monster Palooza in Pasadena, California, and so many people cosplaying as, is it Art the Clown? Is that?
Yeah, David. I know him. He's on my Facebook. Plays and David Howard Thornton. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people dressing up like that thing.
Yeah, I mean, super popular.
They're really good, and I like them, but they're over the top with the gore to where you're like, man, this is just too much. And I'm surprised that I'm even saying that because I've grown up, watching horror all my life.
Sure.
They're intense.
I have heard. I'll have to check one out one of these days, but
and they get crazier every one. Like he just goes over the top more. Like what's the stuff where like he would cryo freeze someone with like a tank or what? I don't forget what it's called, but he does that to someone's head.
Oh boy,
and breaks it.
Yeah.
Like, it is over the top, but I say at least watch it once.
Okay, I'll check it out. It'll have to be when my wife's out of town. She doesn't like too much gore.
Yeah, they're too much, but yeah. But he's definitely the new shiznit when it comes to like horror icons for sure. That's a hard thing to get into, like the next Freddy or Jay. He did it. So
well, that's what I was just having this conversation with Dave. That that seems to be the key to sort of longevity in these franchises, and it's tough to do. It's tough to come up with a brand new character that no one's thought of before. So Art certainly has a very distinctive look, and anyway, the movies have done very well, and as well they should have. I'm all power to those guys.
That last one beat Joker 2.
Yeah.
Which Joker 2 sucked to me, but it beat it at the box office. But definitely. So, and what's Bloodline Comics? Is the name, right?
Yeah, Bloodline Comics. We don't have a website, but you can find us online. Bloodline Comics pictures, I think, on a lot of the various social media sites, Instagram, things like that. I'm trying to think where you could find the pre-order stuff, but you can look up Nightmare Theater, Horror Anthology, Bloodline Comics.
Indiegogo, and then Carmilla is on Indiegogo.
Yes, yep. And I'm putting the Kickstarter campaign for the latest issue just ended. I'm getting the Indiegogo page together right now, so we should be live on Indiegogo in maybe like a week or two, and you can go there and pledge for the new one. Yeah.
For Carmilla or Nightmare Theater?
Carmilla Unbound 1984. Yeah.
Okay. What was the last issue of that one? That was 1984.
That was 1984. Yeah, and then the one we're gonna do later this year is a very Carmilla Christmas Carol.
Okay. And yeah, I haven't got that one yet, but I'll have to jump in at some point. But yeah, it's interesting, these anthologies. Those seem to get pretty popular on Kickstarter for sure. And I try to keep up with a lot of them in the comics. Like I know Image did Creep Show. They've been doing those. Those are pretty good. I love Creep Show. And, EC Comics is back on some level from Omni Press and has some new stuff that's anthology-ish stuff. And I love that stuff, definitely. The anthology stuff. What are some of your favorite anthologies?
Oh man, I mean the old school Creep Show for sure. Creepy, Eerie from Warren Comics. Those were all great. I used to be a big fan of the Tales from the Crypt HBO show. And that's probably what got me into a lot of that stuff.
Love those. Yeah.
I loved that show. I loved the Crypt Keeper. That opening I thought was brilliant. So I haven't, those comics are probably a little before my time, right? Because those were like the 50s. I mean, I think I have some of those collections, but those were written for like a younger audience. They're kind of tough. I mean, you can sort of appreciate them now as an adult in a certain way, but to really like get swept into it. I mean, for me, the stuff that resonates maybe a little bit more is sort of the creepy, eerie, the Warren stuff. And I liked, DC had an anthology series back in the 80s, or probably late 80s, maybe early 90s, called Wasteland. That was John Ostrander and Del Close who created that with a bunch of different artists. That I think had some really cool stuff. I mean, it wasn't hardcore horror, but it was just sort of like creepy stuff that made you think. That had some really good stuff, and not horror, but 2000 AD, the sci-fi anthology from Great Britain. I mean, they've obviously with Judge Dredd, but they've put out some good stuff it's not, like I said, it's not horror, but if you appreciate anthologies, that's a good one to look at too. And I certainly, when we were putting together Nightmare Theater, did kind of look at how they had done 2000 AD.
I'm looking at Wasteland now. There's a lot of different ones. I don't know if there's different series of it or if it's the same series, but
it ran for like 18 issues at DC. Yeah, you can probably find it super cheap. I'm sure you can find it super cheap. I don't know that it was ever a huge hit for them, but it was super interesting. I mean, also because Del Close, one of the co-creators, he was like one of the founders of improv theater, basically. I mean, he was a revered member of the Chicago improv scene. And so, like I think he worked with Bill Murray and a lot of the people from Saturday Night Live. So he kind of tells some of his personal stories in that book. I think every issue kind of contained a memoir type comic from Del Close. Just like a really interesting character. So
I found it on here. I'm eyeballing it, but
yep.
Yeah, I gotta be careful. I'm having some job turbulence, so be careful with our new Trumpel Gooch dystopian society we live in. That's really bizarre. This gets weirder every day.
Yep,
we don't die from it.
we're living in our own horror anthology.
It's creepy for sure. And the main reason we do the show is paranormal stuff. Me and Wham have had some experiences and encounters and stuff, and we've gotten some very serious shows about that. Is that something that's ever come up in your life? Any paranormal encounters or anything weird?
I'm trying to think. It's funny. I'm definitely interested in this stuff, and so like I'll do ghost tours and things. Like when we went to Savannah, besides going to the Pirate's house, we did a ghost tour, and my son likes to say that we left him in a cemetery during the ghost tour. I don't think that's true. I don't think we left him. I think he might have dawdled a bit. But yeah, I mean, I love doing that. We did a Jack the Ripper walk in London, my wife and I, and
cool.
And it ends at the 10 bells, and you're just like, you've just been on this extraordinary walk through London, hearing all these ghoulish tales, and now suddenly it's night, and you're going into this bar where a lot of this stuff went down, and it was just a super creepy feeling. I remember going down the stairs to go to the bathroom, and the walls were lined in the stairwell with articles and stuff about Jack the Ripper, and talk about feeling a presence. Like you definitely felt something there. And then my wife and I did like a ghost hunters thing when we lived in Georgia. We went to something at like a public library that was run by some ghost hunters, and it was supposed to be this haunted library. And they had the electromagnetic pulse readers and things like that. And we're like walking around and, hearing this stuff. And they kept saying that like there was a ghost, following my wife. And it was like you could point the stuff to her and you could get all the, the readings and stuff. And I remember driving home and she was super creeped out. Like, I hope nothing followed us home, nothing's in the car with us. And then my son and I went to the Crescent Hotel. He wanted to sleep in a haunted hotel for his birthday last year. So we went to the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and they advertised themselves as the most haunted hotel in America, and it's like a weird story. This guy, this con man, ran it as like a fake cancer hospital. So he supposedly sold these cancer cures that he had come up with, but it was all bogus. And so he'd inject people with things and do all these treatments on them, and they die. And he had a morgue down in the basement where I guess all the bodies went, and I guess it was such a success because I mean, I guess he would try to maybe send the people away before they died or something. I don't know, but he somehow wound up with a lot of bodies, and they were all like buried in the backyard. And so we did this tour of this hotel, and you wind up in the morgue, and you just see all these jars full of body parts that they dug up from the backyard back in the day. And yeah, that was super creepy. And we slept in a room that was supposed to be haunted by one of the nurses. And I can't say that I felt any kind of presence there or anything like that, but I can tell you, I don't think my son slept a wink. And as soon as we woke up in the morning, he was ready to get out of there.
Does he want to go back to any more haunted places, or is that it?
He said to me the other day that he really had a fun time doing that, and he wants to go back. So I don't know. Maybe we'll go there again. I don't know. But yeah, it's just kind of a fun thing to do. I mean, I don't know if there's anything there. I don't know if there's any truth to any of it, but I just sort of like going and having those experiences.
Yeah, and it's an interesting subject, and we know the UFO subject's gotten really weird, in our world, when the congressional hearings, and then the Pentagon releasing weird UFO videos, and then the Pentagon saying there's no alien life as they release weird videos and then have congressional hearings about bodies. So it just gets really more complicated, confusing, and stupid at the same time. But it's definitely an interesting subject, and we've had lots of people on about it. I had a lot of UFO stuff in Georgia happen that was really weird. Yeah, and it seemed to happen after testicular cancer. I had that at 17, and then several years later my dad died, and it seemed to be connected to that, like trauma. And he was a very persistent individual, so I believe it was him trying to reach me from the other side on some weird level, and a lot of witnesses and seeing just weird stuff that's very weird. And you still kind of try to get over it after seeing something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what the show's been about mostly, is just trying to figure it out. And still haven't really figured out much, except that there's definitely weird shit happening. That's really more weird than we can fathom.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's got to be something going on, Yeah. It can't just be this. I have you ever been in Georgia? There's like a mini Stonehenge or something.
Is that the Georgia Guidestones?
Yes. Oh, they tore it down?
They like blew it up or something. Some person, like some weird terrorist.
Yeah, there were a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the person who built it, and there was this whole sort of Christian right-wing group or kind of, whatever segment on in the conspiracy sort of blogosphere that felt that it was a call to the Antichrist, and it was a call to the one world government and stuff. So yeah, somebody blew it up.
Holy cow.
Somebody actually took explosives down there and destroyed it.
I mean, I guess that sounds vaguely familiar to me, but so it's gone. It's totally gone now?
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah.
Wow, that's a shame. I remember when I lived there wanting to go visit it, and then we moved away before I could get there.
Yeah, there's like a couple of documentaries about it. I think that they're on Amazon Prime, and one is about the history of this guy did kind of a deep dive into trying to figure out the person, it was built by a particular person. So the person who built it and what his goal was in building it and who he was connected to, and then towards the, and I think that, and then towards the end of it, they talk about some of the conspiracies. And then there's another one that was done that actually includes the destruction of it. You can get on YouTube and do some searching, and you'll probably come up with both the documentaries. So
I will definitely have to check that out because I'm super interested in that. Like, it just seemed like such a weird place to put that in rural Georgia.
Well, there was a reason why he did, and it had that the guy who put it there, and it had something to do with his. It had something to do with his, if I remember right, his business connections to the area, and also it had something to do with when he got permission to build it from the town or whomever, they didn't really, whoever it was who gave him permission, they didn't really care. And I think it may have originally started out on private property or something. Anyway, in other words, it was kind of like, it was just, at the time, it was considered just this weird eccentric thing that this guy was doing. And so nobody really cared that much about it. And in fact, once it was built, for a long time, nobody paid any attention to it at all. And then people started noticing it. And especially as the internet got started, starting about 25 years ago or something, that's when the rumors about it started to spread. And so that's when, like, the conspiracy theories about it started to spread. Prior to that, it was just kind of a weird eccentric thing that was in this town, and it wasn't that big. Really, it wasn't that big of a deal, apparently. So,
yeah, it's a real shame that it's gone now. I mean,
it's a shame in the sense that, I mean, the guy who built it, he was a controversial figure. I mean, he believed deeply that, he believed in some of the things that the tech bros believe in now. He believed that he believed in eugenics. He believed he was a racial supremacist. He believed that most people on the planet probably should die.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it wasn't like he was, a humanitarian for everyone. So, sorry, I live by a fire station, and so the 911 siren has just gone off. Anyway,
I thought it was the apocalypse happening.
Well, no,
we've somehow summoned.
No, I haven't at all. But
cool.
No, I mean, the guy was not. He was a person that we wouldn't consider to be a really nice person or politically correct now. But like I said, this was just sort of his own private thing that he was doing. He believed that somehow the information that he was giving, the principles that he was giving and enshrining in this monument, would help future generations to survive when everybody basically died.
Wow. I gotta say, that siren is bringing like great atmosphere to this conversation. It makes it feel so much spookier.
Well,
I think
except that I hear it all the time.
I'm sure it drives you nuts. But I feel like every Friday night at this time, you guys just need to call in some fires, around your area, just to have that siren going.
Well, Jeffrey has heard the siren before. Well, let me tell you, I mean, it's like I live right next to it. So it's like when it goes off at 3 a.m, it's highly annoying. Although we've gotten used to it, and once it wakes you up, we know what it is, so we go right back to sleep. Like last night, actually, something much more intense happened. Because we had some storms moving through, and I had just fallen asleep, and it was maybe about 11:30 or 12, and there was this huge boom, like an explosion. It shook the house, and I like woke up, and I was like, I remember I yelled, "What the fuck?" I yelled, and it turned out that I thought maybe it was like a gas explosion or something, but it turned out that there was a tree had been hit by lightning about a block away, and it just basically blew the tree up. And so that's what woke us up. But
Oh boy.
anyway,
Yeah, we get bad storms around here where I am, and so we hear that quite often, and then we'll get the tornado sirens going off. So that's what I
yeah.
thought that was
Oh, so
when
was
when it
the
started going off.
well, see, I was born and raised in Kansas, so I understand sirens.
Right.
And yeah, I understand sirens. And yeah, I have to explain. No, this is not a tornado. This is the 911 siren. We live right next to the volunteer fire station. In rural parts of New York, fire EMT and fire departments are all voluntary. So
All right.
so basically there's nobody like hanging out at the station, but they have the 911 service goes through it, and then it calls people to it, and it only takes them a couple minutes to get here, and then they go out and do whatever they do. So, but it is pretty exciting when people hear it.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly gave me a jolt. Better than caffeine.
Certainly add it to the Trumpelgoosh dystopian nightmare.
There you go.
And we're all really sad about the Elon Musk Trumpelgooch breakup.
Well, how did I put it?
Not.
How did I to me it's like, how did I put that today? It's like I was thinking about that earlier today. It was like,
Like
my question about this daddy divorce is, who gets custody of baby Vance, and will Teal really be sufficient as his pedo uncle? That's what my question is.
Time will tell, but it was enormously entertaining. I'll say that.
What's up with the black eye?
Oh, well, apparently, according to the story, he got into a tussle. I can't remember with one of with who it was, but it was one of Trump's cabinet people. They got into a little bit of a shoving match, and he got kind of popped in the eye, or ran into something as a result of that.
I'm going to, just keeping with the theme of the show, I'm just going to suggest maybe he was kidnapped by aliens. It was an anal probe gone wrong. And now he's got a black eye.
And
yeah.
The Black Eye Club is what they're saying in the right-wing conspiracy circles. He's in the Illuminati Black Eye Club now. And Bernie Sanders had it happen to him, supposedly, which I was for Bernie Sanders, so I don't believe that. But I know Bernie Sanders showed up with a black eye at some point. But we try not to talk about politics too much unless we just have to. But we do have one cool guy on, Eric Grimsrud, who does a whole show where he thinks Trump is Mabus Nostradamus's Antichrist, and he breaks it down using Trump, and it's really creepy. Like, you just hear it at first, like, no.
It's actually a lot of fun.
It's creepy. He breaks down Trump to mean Mabus somehow, and then he has Hitler and Hisler and the other ones and Napoleon, and really creepy. It'll give you the goosebumps.
Well, I remember reading, like, in the first go round, I remember reading some kind of article about like the memification of, I don't even remember who that is. It like Keck or whatever, like that toad. That meme,
Pepe.
Yes.
Pepe?
But it was like somehow summoning like this demon frog god from another dimension.
Yeah,
and I went down this total rabbit hole, and it was like, oh my god, this is like some creepy stuff.
Oh, let me tell you, subreddits can be so weird, and between that and QAnon, geez,
you can kind of feel like you're going crazy reading some of this stuff, but it's all fascinating. I mean, definitely as a writer, I mean, that stuff I find super fascinating.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what's interesting to me. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with that that novel, House of Leaves.
Oh, I haven't read it, but I've heard it's great.
What's interesting about that novel is how it was written, and it was written like in the early 2000s. I think it started like in the late 1990s and then was finished in the early 2000s. But what's interesting about that novel is the guy who started that novel, he didn't just write that novel. It was written collectively on the internet. by
wow.
him, and it's like one of the first things kind of like that. I mean, it's, I guess they call it creepypasta now, but that's how it was written. He kind of posited a series of themes and ideas, and then different people would add to them, and it just gradually sort of accumulated in this layered format. He did have to organize some of it, you know what I mean? But the way that it finally sort of evolved is this very complex, multi-layered story, which if you haven't read it, I would recommend it because it'll mess you up. If you're not accustomed to being able to read things at it's like a hypertext. If you're not accustomed to reading things at multiple levels, but it really in print form sort of presages that kind of logic that you then find in QAnon, that sort of multi-layered
Oh,
textual,
wow.
you know, and it's and it what it creeps you out in a way that, I don't know. I mean, I love Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think that the story Beyond the Wall of Sleep is one of the most brilliant stories that Lovecraft wrote. So I was really glad that you used it as sort of a kind of mold. I think there are lots of other things that could be done with that story.
Uh-huh.
When I read that story, it's like my mind just goes, in all these different directions.
Yeah.
But it basically, if you could take like the best kind of parts of Beyond the Wall of Sleep and think about, Nightmare on Elm Street, that's the kind of effect that House of Leaves has on you when you read
Oh,
it.
wow. Well, you've
That
definitely sold me on it. I'm gonna have to check
I
it
mean,
out.
and it will haunt you. It's like you start reading it and you're like, just even to read it, you have to like get into it because there's like about 4 or 5 different
Hmm.
layers of it. And then once you're really into it, you cannot forget it. And then it's like everything you do in your life, you're like, wait a minute, is this? It screws with your ability to experience your life.
I mean, that's cool because that's what good art should do, right? I mean, it
Right.
should affect you.
Well, and especially when you think of the fact that it was generated by different people, by different, it was generated organically out of different people adding to it,
Hmm. Right.
over like it was over the course of a year or two. It was really, it's interesting.
Huh.
Um, it's one of the more uncanny experiences I've ever had with a text. So I
Well, I
would,
mean, it sounds way up my alley, and I feel like since you brought up Beyond the Wall of Sleep, I feel like I have to tell you, I meant no disrespect by saying that we Hollywooded it by sort
oh
of
no,
like
no,
taking the
no.
title and doing a different story, but like trying to visualize it and encapsulate everything we wanted to say as like a springboard for Dream Quest. Like it was the perfect title and it was the perfect ideas. Like I hope Lovecraft purists liked it. I mean, I know we had a
I'm
lot
not
of
a
Lovecraft
purist.
fans.
I'm
Yeah.
not a purist.
All right.
I
Well, I know we had a lot of fans that liked Dream Quest, but certainly I can understand taking something that people love and doing something different with it. Is
Well,
risky.
but that's just part of the creative process. I mean, it's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. I'm just saying that it it's there is a lot more to Lovecraft than
Yeah.
Cthulhu. I mean, I
Yes.
love Cthulhu, but like for example, even Colors Out of Space,
Oh
which
yeah.
which is, I mean, some people I guess kind of lump it with Cthulhu, but it's not. It's not about that at all. I mean, you've got weird monster kinds of things, but mm, that story is really about stuff that's inside of you. You know what I mean? It's not, and how stuff that's outside can get inside, and that it links with stuff that's inside. And I mean, it's, what both of those stories are about. Beyond the Wall of Sleep is about how the boundary that we make between us and other possible worlds is not a solid boundary.
Right.
And
Right.
that's why we can be affected by it to begin with. And so, to me, oh, and then there's another one. What is it called? Oh God, I can never remember what the stupid story is called. Maybe you'll remember if it's one of the stories about um, these. Oh God, I'm gonna hate myself. It's like one of the other things, his stories I really like. It's about an alien invasion that's being investigated by a person who is scientific or an academic, and he's heard these stories about these odd creatures that have come down and invaded this area in New England, and he. Um,
Oh.
he goes to investigate it because he's a skeptic, and he goes to investigate it and finds out that there's something to it, and gradually over time, whatever these beings are, they begin to sort of take over people gradually.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes the story so intense is that it's actually about this guy's the skeptic. It's about a skeptic, the scientific guy who is realizing that he is up against a power, a mental power and a physical power that he's both attracted to, because obviously it's an unknown thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's terrifying because of what it does to your brain. Um, and and basically what these creatures are doing, they kind of look like a weird cross between, I don't know, mushrooms or something. They look odd, but
Uh-huh.
what they're basically attempting to do is take everybody's brains. They kind of like eat your mind, and they're going to like fly away. Let me see here. There's Beyond the Wall of Sleep. Just a minute. I'm looking at a list of
A
Lovecraft's
list of titles. I was going to say I could just
a
start
list of
rattling
titles.
some off.
A list of titles. A list of titles. Where is it? Where is it?
But that sounds creepy. You know, it's
Yeah,
fascinating to me. Well, I'll vamp while you do that.
yeah. I'm like,
But what's fascinating to me is like how so many of these guys didn't live to see their creations become, what they are. I mean, Lovecraft is enormously influential to writers, and certainly to Stephen King, and a lot of those horror guys. And Robert E. Howard even, didn't see the success of Conan the Barbarian, and even not a horror thing, but Ian Fleming, died before Goldfinger was released, so he never got to see James Bond become a big thing.
The Whisperer in Darkness.
Oh, that's one I haven't read.
The Whisperer in Darkness. Yeah. See, here it is. Yeah. This is what makes this story so creepy is that it's this guy telling his story. It's in the first person,
Mm.
and it just ends with him being able to hear what ends up happening is that he can hear the sounds that these creatures make as they are approaching to like. And for him it's terrifying because he's an intellectual, so he's been dependent on his brain the whole
Right.
time. He's dependent on his rational faculty, and that's what they want to eat that and consume that and take it for themselves.
And
and
so you're kind of
and
like watching him crack up a little
yeah,
bit.
you're watching him crack up, and it ends with him being trapped by them, and he can hear them coming towards him, and that's how it ends.
That's cool.
So basically, I mean, this is the opening of the plot. The story is told by Albert Wilmarth, an instructor of literature, of course, at Miskatonic University.
Hmm.
When local newspapers report strange things seen floating in rivers during a historic flood in Vermont, Wilmarth becomes embroiled in a controversy regarding the reality and significance of the sightings. He sides with skeptics, blaming old legends about monsters living in uninhabited hills that abduct people wandering too close to their territory. So he gets eventually invited by somebody who, he gets a letter where someone is saying, no, there's something to this. So it's so atmospheric. It's so perfectly atmospheric the way that he is. So Whisper in Darkness, Colors Out of Space, and The Wall Beyond Sleep. Those are my 3 favorite Lovecraft stories.
Nice.
Just because of how they screw with your head.
Yeah, he was very effective at that. I mean, I haven't. I'm trying to remember if I've read. I think I have read Color Out of Space. It's the movie I haven't seen, the Nicolas Cage, right? That came out a few years ago.
Yeah, and the movie is. I mean, obviously, the movie doesn't track with the book or the story exactly, but it does.
It's Hollywood.
Yeah, right. It does relatively effectively capture the kind of creepy nature of the film. And you know how Nicolas Cage is. He always plays people going wacko really well. So, it's sort of that's sort of his oeuvre. And, so it's worth seeing. It's not as good as the story though.
Right.
But it's worth seeing.
Well, your description of is Whisper in Darkness, is that
the Whisper in Darkness?
The Whisper in Darkness. Yeah, your description of that is super compelling. So I'm gonna have to go and check that out when we're done.
Yeah, it's and it's not a terribly long. It's not a terribly long story, but what's interesting about it is that the way it's written like a memoir, like an account, like a diary. And so that there's just this conceit that this happened. It's
and that's
not
how
like
a lot of old books were. I mean, that's sort of like how fiction started, right? You started pretending that these were, I mean, even Frankenstein, supposedly, right? It was somebody's memoirs that they found or the story that someone was telling,
I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like the Blair Witch Project. It's kind of like found stories.
Yeah, that's what fiction started out as. It was all the Blair Witch Project. I think that's a really good.
Well, even Dracula is like that. It's it's like a collection of, and what's interesting about both Frankenstein and Dracula is that you never get a complete description of the monster.
Right.
You get different impressions of the monster, but you never get like a complete description of the monster. And so what that does is that leaves it to the imagination of the person, that's part of the horror of it, is that you cannot really see what other people are seeing. That's part of what makes it terrifying. It's reminiscent of when people have paranormal experiences now, and they see something, but they can't really describe to you exactly what they saw. It's kind of like they have to assemble it later on in their brains, or they'll say it was kind of like this and kind of like that and kind of like this. It had this characteristic and this characteristic. And so you can tell that they're trying to assemble like what they saw in their brain because it freaked them out so much.
It's kind of impressionistic. I mean, it reminds me of how Jaws was more effective because the mechanical shark didn't work, so they couldn't show it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they had to show just bits and pieces of it.
Yes, and that's scarier. Whatever is left up to your imagination sometimes is scarier than what anybody else can dream up.
Oh, absolutely. Because we can freak ourselves completely out imagining things. That's what makes Nightmare on Elm Street so scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even because, the movie itself, looking at some of the movie and the images, I mean, it's very effective, but it's more like what it plants in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
as like a seed that, you know, visits you later on. I mean, that's what's really scary about that movie.
Right. Well, and that's like I mean, I don't know if you've watched the series Stranger Things, but yeah, I mean, not the, you know, the Netflix series
Yeah, yeah.
Stranger Things, but like
I've seen some of it.
in the second season, when they did that, when they did their Lovecraft homage, because what they've basically been doing is going through and doing homages of the different types of horror. Each season is like a, in addition to being a story, it's also an homage to a particular style of horror in American movies.
Okay.
And so the second season was really an homage to Lovecraft, and also to some degree um, to the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, but mostly to Lovecraft.
Oh, wow.
And the first 3 episodes, before you actually see kind of the what you later find out to be sort of the mind behind the Upside Down, the mind flayer, I guess is what they call it. You only see parts of it. You only see pieces of it. You only see its effects. You only see, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so the first time, and it's like maybe halfway through the second season, it's the first time that you actually see it more as a whole lifting up out of the horizon. I mean, I about ran out of the room. It freaked me out so bad. I was like, "Oh my God," you know, because they had been very effective in just sort of
Yeah.
generating this kind of unease about it. This and it was very it was just creepy, you know. And then later on in the series, you know, like I think it's in season 3. I don't know if it's season 3 or season 4, but they they kind of reconstruct the mind flayer like a I'll put it this way, because in our world, as opposed to the Upside Down, in our world, things are a little more rigid in some
Mhm.
ways. So the part of the mind flayer that can make it into our reality is not quite as effective here as it is in the Upside Down. So it can be killed here. It's still impressive and scary, and it's kind of vampiric in a certain kind of way. And so what they were pulling on, you know, for that, where they basically were doing an homage to like zombie stuff and monster stuff.
I'll
And
have to check it out.
it's
My son got really into it, and I started watching, I think, the first season, but man, I sometimes I struggle with TV shows, but this definitely sounds way up my alley, so I'm gonna have to revisit it.
well, and it helps to know its context. It's also because it's this homage. It's also an homage to the 80s.
Yes.
And so the only thing that it gets wrong, and I don't know why they don't include this, I have complained about this several times, is that they don't mention MTV anywhere
Huh.
in it, which is weird because throughout the course of the show, one of the things that you do see at a certain point from the beginning to the end of it is, because it was during the 1980s that the rest of that the cable television industry was deregulated,
Mhm.
and so cable TV started to become available widely throughout the rest of the, you know, even in small
Yeah.
towns, rural areas. And one of the cultural features of that was MTV, and it was everywhere. You know, MTV was, you know, and music videos were like the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And while they will feature the music of that time period, they don't talk about the videos, and I find that to be really odd. I don't know whether there's some, you know, maybe they couldn't get licensing from MTV to do that.
I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, but a throwaway line here or there about, you know,
Yeah,
Thriller or something like that.
just music videos,
Yeah.
because you know there were other, like the VHS channels started doing music videos too. So you could, but it's just odd. I mean, I find that to be odd. That's the only kind of down part of it that, and it's just odd because it's such anybody who lived through the 80s, they know about how ubiquitous MTV was and the music videos and how that influenced what music became popular. It created
100%.
It created stars that, it created celebrity that had never been created before. So, I would argue that it almost created new genres of music. And then there was this whole, by the end of the decade, there was this whole controversy about the fact that MTV wouldn't feature videos by hip hop artists, or by rap artists. And so gradually they had to start doing that. But but other than that, it's a great homage to the 80s, and the actors, the actors are great. They're just really good. So
it's a fun watch, definitely. I used to battle those mind flayers in junior high when I was a dungeon master, and vice versa, a long time ago, a million years ago. But, my favorite of Dungeons and Dragons is Ravenloft. I don't know if you are familiar with that. It's kind of like a Dracula, Frankenstein type supplement called Ravenloft. I love that. But definitely, Guillermo del Toro. I always have trouble with his name because I'm from Georgia. Guillermo del Toro has a Frankenstein. They just released a trailer coming out, and
coming out on Netflix. Should be in the movie theaters. That's what I think. But I'll watch it on Netflix if I have to.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're not releasing it at theater or whatever. I know Martin Scorsese just released this big thing of why he don't go to theaters because someone was rude to him and talking and wouldn't shut up or something. So now he doesn't go to theaters at all, which I don't either anymore. But they're fun to go to if you can. But let's. I guess are you ready to go, Clay? You need to head out.
I should probably head out soon. Yeah. It's been great chatting with you guys, though.
Yeah. It's been great, and I've really enjoyed it. And keep us in the loop on future projects I can help promote. I like to help out in that way, and I get about 900,000 per show listeners, I'm told, and that's what I'm told. Even though sometimes I have trouble believing it, but that's what I'm told. So sweet. I do what I can to help out with friedcomics.com. Right?
I appreciate it. Yeah, check me out at friedcomics.com. I'm on Twitter. Or X, I guess, as they're calling it now, at Clay's Evil Twin. I'm on Substack, clayadams.substack.com. And you can check out Bloodline Comics. Look us up. Nightmare Theater, Horror Anthology, Carmilla Unbound. And keep an eye out for the Grunch coming soon.
Definitely. And one last question. Who is this Frida that I was opening the box and Christina saw a Kiss lipstick on a thing and they explained Frida. Like,
did I get you in trouble?
Almost, but I was okay. Nothing too bad. But I was like feeling awkward. Like, how do I explain who is Frida?
Okay. Yes, this is just for your significant other. Frida is our waitress, hostess type at the Fried Diner. She serves up all the Fried comics. She was certainly when we started in the first, 5 years, especially of Fried Comics, she was a very big part of it. I actually had Frida write all of our emails, so she ran the newsletter. But Frida got into some legal trouble. She went to jail, so I've had to take over. But every now and then they'll let her send out packages from the Pokey, and she likes to kiss them. Little certificate of authenticity with her lipstick on it. So you're safe from Frida. Yeah.
Frida, I noticed your emails, only the Frida one worked. I was like, what's going on here? There's some Norman Bates kind of stuff going on here.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, something happened with GoDaddy where they don't it is maybe a little Norman Bates-ish. Something happened with GoDaddy where they don't they don't have all the emails working anymore, and it is just the Frida one that works. So I should probably can those other ones. But
I noticed that. I was like, what the what?
Frida might be making a comeback because so many people are asking about her now. In fact, I've got somebody I met at a convention who just started supporting me and who's like, "Do you have any Frida merchandise?" And I was like, "Well, we used to sell T-shirts, we used to have mugs." She's like, "I want Frida merch." So I don't know. Maybe Frida will make a comeback.
Alrighty, well, keep us in the loop.
Yeah, she's a little exhausting though, so I had to retire her.
I understand. Well, thanks so much, man. It's been a great interview and we appreciate it. And keep us in the loop. And thanks so much.
Will do. Thank you so much for the support. And thanks for having me on. See you guys next time.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right, everybody. You're listening to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. Next week is Kevin Lafort, Inverse Press, and he can really get into Kickstarter and what's going on. Like, he dissects it, and then if there's like comics that seem scummy or too pornographic, he'll get on the Kickstarter. Like, there's some that people are on there trying to just release these like crappy AI comics with boobies, and just like it's like a total ripoff. And I guess you have to be a billionaire to keep up with all the dumb covers. I don't buy those kind of covers. I just get the first cover, and the covers I get rarely might have some cleavage, but there's like gross stuff on there that's just over the top, like just scummy. He goes after it in a deputy kind of way, but just stuff.
What, scummy boobies?
Yeah, just over sexualized comics that probably don't have that much of a plot. They're just like a naked chick or whatever, that are just too much. It's the ones I avoid, but he gets into the ones that are the good ones and goes through the different fundraisers and stuff. Like, he has a newsletter that goes out that dissects it. And then he did the Frankenstein versus Cthulhu and all that stuff, Gothic Matchup. He actually has a Gothic Matchup comic coming out. I'm sure he doesn't care if I tell it, but it's Moby Dick and Dracula somehow in it. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but there was a Paul Bunyan Dracula comic that a guy just put out. Like, there's some weird stuff for sure, but everything's just been crazy. My job's tanking pretty much, a sinking ship, having to deal with all that crap, looking on Rat Race Rebellion and all this stuff. And then, of course, the great Rumble hack happened and knocked out all my Vietnamese connections, and they're trying to come back, but every time they do, their channel gets deleted. So that was extra income that was destroyed. So trying to get on Rat Race Rebellion, which is actually a good site for work-at-home stuff that's legit. I hear something.
It's because I'm actually looking at I'm looking at the what's called the what is it? The weather-wise with Ryan Hall, y'all. I'm looking at the tornado storms in Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. I'm sure the weather this year concerns me for sure. God, I don't even want to think about it, but doesn't seem like it's been raining that much. A little bit.
Well, maybe maybe not where you are, but it's been raining in a lot of places. I mean, it's they had like a really amazing storm. Several storms in Texas last night were just in the course of literally 45 minutes. It rained. I think it rained almost 6 inches in like 45 minutes in this one area and caused flooding in parts of Lubbock. I mean, there were like storm chasers that had to sort of flee the area because there was a flash flood. They had to get away from it. It was really crazy. Because that's actually more immediately dangerous than even a tornado, in some ways. So, but yeah, and it's been raining a lot. Like right now, what do they got? What do they have? Yeah, so, they've got some of these places have this chase and stuff all down now. It's like they can tell you how many tornado warnings there are, how many watches there are, how many thunderstorm watches there are right now. It's in Texas and in Oklahoma where it often is. Wow, there's a wall cloud that's almost sitting right on the ground.
Why are you looking at other states' weather?
Because I come from Kansas and it's it interests me.
I understand.
It interests me. We did have a tornado in central New York last night, though. It wasn't a very big one, but
Yeah.
we've had some thunderstorms come through in the last 2 days here.
I know it's been humid and just you can't even like I'm not even going outside. I do, but not for long. It's like just horrible. It's like just uncomfortable.
No, it is. It is really uncomfortable. Um, it's
This year's just scary on so many different levels of weirdness. And that's like the site where I work. You would think it would be buzzing through the roof because Trumple Gooch is in office, but it's not. And that's before it's news.com. And my boss is like, you need to lift it up to 6,000 a day so everyone gets paid. Right now it's at 5,000. It's like I can't. I would think it would be at like 10,000 right now if all like it's not though. It's like something's blocking it, or I don't know. Maybe everybody's crying because of the Elon breakup. But I mean, that's not any new surprise. I mean, that's what always happens with people in Trump. They get in weird fights and cry to each other. So it's not like it's like that surprises you that it happened to a supporter.
I knew that I knew that there would be a quote unquote breakup at some point because both of them are narcissists and they have very thin skins, and they both want they only had certain there were only certain interests that they each had that coincided with each other. So, and also there are people even within Musk, within the Trump administration, who would want Musk out, like Peter Thiel, who has been, installing his Palantir software inserting that into the federal government. He doesn't particularly care for Musk. He actually helped to engineer booting Musk out of PayPal. Musk helped to underwrite PayPal and was one of the original kind of founders, quote unquote, of PayPal. And Thiel went in at a certain point and took it over and managed to get Musk kicked out. And you can do that with Musk because Musk is very emotional and irrational, and he's smart in some ways, but he also has a really thin skin, and it's easy to intimidate him emotionally. And Peter Thiel is a psychopath. I mean, his biography basically says he's a psychopath. The guy who is his biographer, he's a functional psychopath, but he's a psychopath. And so he really doesn't care how he affects people, or if he hurts people. He just doesn't care. He has his own agenda. He has his own goals, and whoever gets hurt or needs to be kicked out, he does it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he, behind the scenes, using Vance, helped to figure out ways of exacerbating the annoyance that Trump was already feeling about Musk, and just sort of get that all to the point where Musk could be booted, because Musk has basically opened up the systems that now Thiel can go in and take control of. So they don't need him anymore, and he's a loose cannon, so get rid of him.
Just all a bunch of assholes.
They are. They're all jerks. They're all malignant narcissists of different types. So
it's just crazy. You can't even keep up with it anymore. It's so nuts. But I don't know. I don't know if anybody on his side's waking up. I think some are, but not enough, apparently. It's just like a weird thing where they think he doesn't do anything wrong, no matter what he does.
Yep.
Very weird. Very culty, but we already know that. But let me see who's coming up with the guests. I just sent you and Jay the schedule, so don't forget. No show the 4th. Doing no show on no 4th of July's.
I'm not even going to be in town for that, for the 4th. So.
And next is Kevin Laporte Inverse Press, and then our other show was Wild Trees. Then we got Joseph Schmock. It's a comic dude. Then no show on the 4th. Then when Jay's here, Mark Eddy, Travis Gibb. Travis is another guy that does an anthology weird comic with Santa Claus and just crazy horror stuff. Nisha and Norma, that's you. I need to make sure I sent you that book. I don't remember exactly the book. I'll have to check.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, Nisha and Norma. It's an Intertraditions book. And then Maxim Furrick's coming back. He was a good show, and a friend I've kind of got to know, Maxim Furrick. He was just on with Jay for Bigfoot, but cool guy that's like a rock and roll journalist that's from Florida, and he's snowbirds down here, but knows a lot of stuff like about Nirvana and weird, like he covered bands and stuff. But he put out a lot of good books. He's coming on for his coal miner book. It's a weird, I forget the story, but something to do with a coal mine. And then Scott Pelzer is a paranormal. That's in August. That's the guy who's on Kickstarter raising some funds for a paranormal series. Derek Rook. That's the what was that? The Gore Shriek I mentioned earlier. Jerry Avalos. That's a friend that's knows a lot of tech stuff and used to produce for Carrie Cassidy. Anthony Fusilla's coming back. That's space stuff. September's Michael Winkle. That's a paranormal book. Then Mike Hacker. And then I'm still scheduling. I need to get some more women in here. Get some more women authors. There's some, but got to quit with the sausage party. Too many sausages.
Sausages. Oh.
Need to quarantine the sausage.
Well, there are certainly some sausages that should be quarantined.
Yes. Stephanie barely does shows. I don't think she even does shows because she's not feeling well lately. So
yeah, she's having trouble with aphasia. So
yeah, but hopefully maybe she'll do one in the future or something. But Barbara DeLong, I could check with Mark about her. That's someone I can check in. There's some others that I've been talking to. I'm working on, but then I got to start doing the infamous October lineup. This is really like to get some weird Halloween stuff. See if I can top last year's weirdness, which I don't know if I can, but maybe. I need another Vlad the Impaler show for sure. Those are hard to find, but wouldn't mind that. But gosh, it's just everything's just ugh, and I hate to say that because it just seems like you make it worse when you just say it. That everything's just a weird feeling in there.
Yeah, it's kind of an unreal sort of atmosphere. I mean, it really is. It's sort of an unreal kind of
Just a discomfort.
Yeah.
I remember being more comfortable in my body at some point. Lately, it just feels like it's not at all. It's just like I don't know, a discomfort. Just too many weird things going on with the passing through radiation belts and solar flares and who knows what else people are shooting at us from foreign nations and our own nation with energy weapons and just too much going on. Getting fried out of touch. What's going on? We don't have too much longer, but anything interesting going on with astronomy?
Well, the thing that everybody is talking about right now, the astrologers are talking about right now, is that Saturn has moved into Aries and from Pisces, and that apparently has the depending on what a person's chart is, that has the potential to create really tense situations that could lead to like conflict or war. Because you take something like Saturn, which is really about discipline and sort of limitation and regulatory energy, and you put it in Aries, which is all about intense expansion and intense energy, um, being quick prone to anger, being sort of hair trigger responses, that kind of thing. And you put those two things together, and it can be kind of explosive. It just depends on, how it's impacting you and your chart specifically. So it's not the best. It's not the best transit for peaceful, tranquil circumstances. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and I'm just surprised war on a bigger level hasn't happened yet. It just seems like it's, I don't know. I guess they sit back and weigh what the final outcome is of that, which is pretty much everyone croaking if it gets too terrible. So that's a lot to probably is a deterrent to war breaking out. The final outcome of it, like the India Pakistan, that could have flamed up. I don't even know what's going on with Israel anymore. I can't even keep up with it. And somehow I don't even the Ukraine dude's still alive. Like that's a miracle in itself that he's even still kicking. I know there's a lot of weird interviews with him and Trump that were very weird.
Oh, you mean Zelensky?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, the Ukrainians have, they've managed to do some really interesting strategic things. So
they've been pretty badass for sure.
Yeah.
Been laying it on thick. They've even went over to Russia and kicked their ass like over the line and other places. Yeah.
Well, they're fighting for their country.
Yeah. More power to them. I saw the Sean Penn stuff, and I've accidentally seen some war pictures from over there that I don't want to ever see again. It was nightmarish, grotesque, horror. There's people on the streets that have been gunned down and stuff like that. What's going on with Star Trek? Anything coming up with that?
Strange New Worlds. It is going to be. I think that the new episode, the new season 3, I think it is going to be starting sometime in. Well, I know that they're going to do the first episode at a convention in July. Okay. But I think it's going to actually start dropping on Paramount sometime in August.
Huh.
So there's that, and and speaking of Stranger Things, they have dropped. Netflix has dropped the dates for when season 5, which will be being dropped in 3 volumes, and let me see.
3 volumes, three parts, huh?
Yes. Stranger Things. Yes. So here's the release dates right here. So yeah, the first 4 it'll be released in 3 parts. With the first 4 episodes, will drop on November 26th, 2025. The next 3 episodes, or volume 2, will be released on Christmas Day. And the series finale, volume 3, will be released on New Year's Eve.
Wow. That's it. That's the final end game.
Yep. The final. Well, yeah, I mean, all the kids are like, they're all adults now. So it's like, it'll be interesting to see like how. My understanding is that it was really kind of hard to do because if you remember, there was the pandemic, and then there was the writer's strike that lasted for quite a while. And between all of those things, and then by that time, several of the young people who are the stars, they were involved in other projects, in the meantime, you know what I mean? And so between trying to sort of figure out how to schedule everybody and yet still provide the continuity needed, I guess it was quite a challenge. So
yeah, I bet getting everybody to stay together. I know that one guy, Wolfgang or something is his name. He did a a new horror movie called Hell of a Summer. I haven't seen it yet, but somehow he made a horror movie. I think his name's Wolfgang or some weird.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about. And well, and then obviously the woman who plays 11 has had a number of projects. So
yeah, she's always got something cooking for sure. And then, well, next week we got Kevin from Inverse Press, and then Wild Trees will be talking about bugs and animals of all sorts.
Bugs and animals.
All kinds of weird animal bug stories from an animal microbiologist. That's always a good show with Wild Trees. And he's been taking some kids out on studies for nocturnal creatures or something. We can talk about that. And then he has tardigrades in his house somehow.
Oh, I love tardigrades.
I didn't realize they were so little.
Oh yeah, they're microscopic.
Wow. Someone needs to mutate one, a big one, like a Godzilla, and unleash it. But all right, everybody. I've lost about 40 pounds lately, so hopefully I'm not croaking. I don't know what my metabolism's gone up or something. It's the skinniest I've ever been, and I'm still fat. So
it's just all the stress.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks, Wham. Thanks, Clay. Thanks to Frida. Frida's a fictional character, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Okay, I figured you did, but it was a little the email thing. Norman, this is your mother. All right. Well, everybody have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. You listen to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. And check out, what was the game I mentioned? Nightmare Frontier.
Frontier.
Yep. And what did I do with it? I always lose stuff. Even when you star it, I lost it. There it is. You can go to YouTube and Splattercat Gaming and check out a review of Nightmare Frontier, or go to Steam and check it out. All right. Thanks, Wham. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.